Welcome back, fellow bikeaholics. I am Ryan Erlacher with lawabidingbiker.com, your high-tech redneck. Another video by bikers for bikers. In today's video, we're basically going to compare stock Harley Davidson exhaust that comes on your bike. It doesn't matter what Harley Davidson model you have, whether it's, you know, a 2-into-1 coming out one side or a 2-into-1-into-2 coming out both sides. You know, Harley comes with stock exhaust, and it's the first thing everybody wants to change out. And we definitely recommend changing your exhaust out. It's one of the best things you can do for your bike, one of the first things to both increase performance, power, and sound of your Harley Davidson, which is also equally important for most Harley riders. So we're going to compare the stock exhaust to Vance Hines Pro pipe. And we purchased a set of the Pro pipes, and we actually take the exhaust off and we put the Pro pipes on. I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison. Basically, well, we're going to flip back and forth from one video. You're going to hear the stock exhaust. We're going to flip back, and you're going to hear after we install the Vance Hines Pro pipes, which is a 2-into-1 system. All right, these are the mufflers that come with the Pro pipes, and they come with what's called the Pro baffle. That's standard. There's also an optional quiet baffle. Or there's a one step up, which is a competition baffle. So low, medium, and high basically, but these are the Pro baffles, which come stock with the Pro pipes that we're going to be putting on here and that you're going to hear in a little bit. So there's a look inside, guys, and again, we got the stock Pro baffle that comes with the Pro pipes. There is a quieter baffle that you could put in, or one up is the competition baffle. But again, you're going to hear these, and this is the standard Pro baffle with the Pro pipes. So the first thing we're going to do here, Lurch is going to do, is remove the 9/16 inch bolt. And there's a clamp there. It actually clamps the exhaust, or the muffler, onto the exhaust pipes. You can use a little break free or WD-40 if those are really tight. They kind of weld on there after a while. All right, the next we're going to remove is their 1/2 inch. And they're actually a bracket that's welded to the mufflers. And then they are supported by the same bar that supports your saddlebags. We'll do this on both sides. All right, and so what we're doing now is just spraying a little WD-40 in between where the actual exhaust pipes and the mufflers meet, where that clamp was, to loosen them up a little bit. All right, once that bracket in the back and the clamp up front are removed, you can start, you can see Lurch, you kind of twist back and forth. And this is a new bike, so they're going to come off pretty easy, but if it's been a while, they're really going to weld on there. You're really going to have to take your time and work those back and forth so they come off. So all Lurch is doing is working on the other side and doing the same exact thing. And he'll get that one off there. And we're going to come up the right side of the bike here. And we're going to get the crossover and loosen the clamp on that. So with the crossover here, the first one Lurch is pointing at there, that's a 5/8 inch bolt, and that's the clamp that actually clamps the crossover onto your right side exhaust, where it chambers and crosses over. And then there's a 1/2 inch bolt, and that's actually over there where Lurch is pointing. That's actually just mounted to the frame of the bike, and it actually just holds the pipe up, holds the crossover up. So those are the two we're going to work on right now. All right, Lurch is just going to work that crossover, kind of twist it back and forth, a little WD-40 up in there again if you need it. Doesn't look like we're going to need it. And just work that right off there. All right, and so we're at the right floorboard, and we're actually going to have to take this floorboard off. And Lurch will just flip it up, and then we'll get these bolts that are under here, get it out of the way so we can remove these exhaust pipes. All right, and so Lurch has got a 3/16 inch Allen here, and then a socket on the other end, and he's just going to start taking this out. 7/16 inch socket. And he's just removing the front there, same deal, and then we can remove that floorboard and we can access the pipe there. So what Lurch is working on right now is the hose clamps, and they're all along the pipes. We'll take the heat shields off, and they're just hose clamps. 9/16 inch nut driver or socket, whatever you have. You can see Lurch working on that hose clamp there. Again, just walk up the pipes and you'll see those all along there. And at this point, you just loosen them, take them apart. You don't actually have to slide them out. They'll come out with the heat shields when we pull them. All right, now he's got those two hose clamps on that particular heat shield. And again, they're loose, and so he'll just pull that whole system off there. We'll move up and start working on the other heat shields. Lurch is just continuing to work on the heat shields. This is for the back head, the back pipe. Now Lurch will just get this heat shield off there. And the final heat shield off the front there. All right, and we're just removing the right side cover here because we're going to have to get to the O2 sensor wires. One's for the front head pipe and one's for the back. We're going to track those for you guys. One's gray, one's black. All right, and what we're doing now is just clipping the wire ties. They're just some plastic ties. You can just clip those with some dikes or angle cutters, whatever you want to call them. And then we're just going to unplug one right now. And we'll unplug that, and then we'll decide and determine whether gray is front or back and whether black is front or back. All right, you just push in on these little things and then pull out, and they slide right off. And we're not going to undo the black one yet. We're actually going to track this gray one and see which pipe it goes to, whether it's front or back, because it does matter. So what we're doing now is just tracking that gray plug, and it looks like it's the front pipe. Gray is front and black is for your rear. And then we're going to move in. I'm going to show you what these O2 sensors look like, where they actually bolt into the head pipes. All right, little tip guys, gray is front, and if you want to remember, black is back. So black is back. That'll help you to remember that the black O2 sensor goes to the back pipe. And Rick's just removing it now, and he's snaking it through. And then we'll actually remove the headers before we actually unthread the O2 sensors. It'll be a little bit easier, but he's just snaking the wires through so that when we do loosen all the bolts on the headers, we can easily pull everything out without snagging any wires. So there's the two O sensors, guys. Again, gray and black. Black is back. So what we're working on now is the right side of the bike here. Of course, there's a clamp underneath that actually holds where it chambers there, where the two pipes come into one. And we'll get you a better shot up underneath. And it's a 9/16 that we're working with socket. And so we're just backing out that 9/16 from this metal clamp that connects to the frame of the bike. So on the other side of this clamp on the upside is just a flat head top to that bolt.
Carriage bolt.
Carriage bolt. And so what you're going to have to do is what Lurch is going to do right now, and he's going to just grab anything. He's going to just grab a socket extension, and he's going to pry down on that while Rick is underneath turning that bolt so it doesn't spin.
Little redneck engineering.
And there comes the nut off the bottom. All right, we're going to move into the front of the bike because it's the easiest to access the front head bolts. So Lurch right now is working on the very front 1/2 inch nut that's on the front header. And you can see to get in there, you're probably gonna, you can't really do it with a socket, you're gonna have to do it with a box end wrench. And be patient while you're doing it. All right, Lurch is just finishing the rest. He's getting it out with his fingers there. And now we're just removing the top of the front head bolt, and you're actually able to get a socket up in there. And Rick's over on the right side of the bike, up near the front. And they shouldn't be too tight, really. They loosen up as the header seat and everything. And Rick is just finishing it with his fingers there. All right, we're gonna move back to the back pipe on the back head. All right, and up there on the rear head, there's your flanges, your exhaust flanges, and there's one on the top, one on the bottom against 1/2 inch. You can see Rick's just working on that with the extension and the socket 1/2 inch up in there to get that nut off the top. And Rick's just working on the bottom one, on that flange now. And that should release our entire exhaust system, our head pipes. So what we're gonna have to do now to get these head pipes off all the way is take that support arm off for the right front floorboard, yeah. And it's just a 5/16 inch Allen right now that we're taking off. And there's 2 of them there. Or just 1, excuse me, and it'll release the support for that right front floorboard. All right, now we can go ahead and pull those out, and you just kind of have to work them back and forth. They are solid pieces of steel, so it's got to be just right to get them to back off those studs. There you go. All right, and here's your O2 sensors in the chamber there, where the 2 head pipes come together. These are the stock ones, and you can see one says B and one says G. That's for black and gray. Remember that, because where it plugs in, there's a black plug and a gray plug. And now we're just going to unscrew and back these 2 O2 sensors out. All right, and Lurch is just removing both O2 sensors with a 9/16 inch wrench. He's already removed one, and now he's doing the other one. All right, and so on each of these, top of these headers for each head is a circlip is what they call it. And you can just use a pair of pliers like Lurch is doing, a regular pair of pliers, get it over the lip or the flange there, and just work it around and it comes right off. All right, and then your flange just comes off those flanges that were on there. All right, we're right side of the bike underneath the transmission. There's a bracket there. And remember, we removed the pipes from that earlier. We're actually gonna have to remove that whole bracket with a 1/4 inch Allen. Lurch is just backing it out there. There's 2 of them. And as soon as you remove that stock bracket, these new Pro pipes come with the new bracket to put on, and we'll show you how and which direction that goes on. And Lurch is putting it on now, and you'll see which direction and which way it goes. And Lurch is just working on cranking these down with a 1/4 inch. It's 13 to 16 foot-pounds if you have a torque wrench. If not, we're just gonna crank them down tight in another 1/2 turn. All right, so we're on the right front of the bike, and where we took that other bracket off for the floorboard, we're actually gonna have to remove another one because there's a spacer that we're gonna have to put in there that comes with the kit. All right, and Lurch is just putting that spacer on that came with it, and then I put both those, actually one back in, and then we're gonna have to put that floorboard support back over the top of that. And we're not gonna put the mount in yet for the floorboard. We're actually just gonna leave that other one out so we can get the pipe in before we put the floorboard support in. We're going to move in the front of the bike through the forks here. I'm going to try to get a shot for you to that front head, and there's some washers or gaskets, excuse me, in there. All right, we're moving in on the right side of the bike here. We're going to go to that front head, and there's gaskets up in there where the flanges were and all that. And what Rick's working on right now is getting the old gaskets out of there. As you can see, Rick got it out there, and just don't mar it up in there, guys, but they do flush, and it's hard to see them. They actually become part of the metal. And you can just get some pliers and stuff and get them out of there. You don't need to replace them unless they look used or like they need to be replaced. Most of the time they don't. And that's what your gaskets look like once you remove it out of the head there. And your new ones that come with the Vance Hines Pro pipes, or your any Vance Hines pipes, are going to look a little bit different. Look like more regular type gaskets. And these actually don't come with your kit, these new gaskets, guys, but they're like $5. And they encourage you to get them just in case you need to replace yours. So for $5 you can get these right here. There's the model number. And Rick is just working at getting that new gasket up in there. Seat it up in there real good with your fingers. And Lurch is just finishing up. He's getting that gasket out of that rear head. And then we'll put the new one in. All right, first thing you're going to do is take your stock flanges and make sure you put those back on. And then we'll take the circlips, the stock circlips, and we'll put those back on. Helps if you have a partner on this. And what Lurch is doing is just taking a pair of pliers on both sides, and he's going to spread them apart and pop them over that little lip there. And there you go. And make sure you get your circlips on right. You'll see the little ledge there on the actual flange, and you want to make sure that ledge so that that circlip can fit up in there. You don't want to get them on backwards. In our true style, we're coming at you with some more free content today. If you appreciate the free content, you want it to continue to keep coming your way, make sure and check out our Patreon page. There is a way you can help us to make sure that happens. There are some benefits over there. One of the benefits is free Law Abiding Biker custom podcast t-shirt. We'll send it to you. Also over there, there's an exclusive private Facebook group that you'll become a member of. There are also other benefits over there. Make sure to check it out, lawabidingbiker.com/Patreon, Patreon. Of course, if you want to leave just a standard donation, we do appreciate that too. That's lawabidingbiker.com/donate. So I gotta ask, what are you waiting for, freaking bikeaholics? Grab your tools already. Let's wrench on some motorcycles, huh? All right, so what Rick has there is some Antiseize, and he's just putting that Antiseize on the threads of the O2 sensors. You can get that Antiseize at any Harley shop or any auto parts store. So now Rick is just threading that first O2 sensor. And again, remember that you have the gray in front on the front pipe. And remember the other end's gray, and then the black on the back one. And that's what we're talking about. You can see that front pipe, he's doing the gray one, threading that in, and then we'll put the black on the back one there. And Rick is just finishing off with a 9/16 inch wrench, and you don't have to crank those down, maybe tight, and then another quarter turn, guys. And again, a little Antiseize on those threads, and we're just threading in the black, the rear one now. All right, and this is kind of a two-man job, guys. Rick and Lurch are working on it. And that's seating the new pipes, and they are metal, so they're not really flexible, obviously. So one's got to kind of work the front pipe and make sure it gets over the studs, and the other one works the rear pipe, and you kind of work in tandem there. Once they're on, we can button them down with some nuts. Right, and Lurch is just working on getting these nuts on the back header pipe started. And what Lurch is doing is going back and forth. You don't just want to crank one all the way down one side and then crank the other one, because it's not going to be even. You want to tighten them in tandem, so back and forth, and that way that flange will go down level and you won't have any leaks. And all we're going to do here is Lurch is going to get them tight, and then maybe another 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn, and then you'll want to ride, you know, a good 500 miles, and those gaskets are going to heat up. They're actually going to shrink, and in a month you'll want to come back and do another turn or two on these nuts. And Lurch is up underneath the front there, and he's starting to crank down with a box end wrench. And on the other side is Rick, and he's working the other one. They're kind of working in tandem. Again, don't just crank down one side. You kind of want to do them together. And this is Lurch working with the box end wrench on this bottom one on the front head. And he's got to use a box end wrench, can't get a socket in there, in about a quarter turn at a time. And then he tells Rick to go ahead and do a few turns, and then he'll do a few more turns. So this might be a two-man job here, guys, and what they're doing is that bracket underneath the transmission that we put on, that aftermarket bracket, they're trying to line that hole up, and so Rick is giving a little pressure on the back pipe to bring it down, and then Lurch is trying to line up that nut or that bolt on underneath. So what Rick's working on here is just those nuts on the back side. They're kind of hard to see. Gonna have to do it by feel. There's 2 of them on that aftermarket bracket. And get those nice and snug. And Lurch is just tighten that front bracket nut, quarter turn at a time. Kind of tedious. So what we're going to do, guys, just because we'll get a little bigger turns on those nuts, and you can wait to put your O2 sensors on till after if you want. Just depends on each model of bike. But we're actually going to take the O2 sensors off real quick, and that'll give us some more room to work with those wrenches. Now you can see Lurch has much more room to work without that O2 sensor in there. Speed it up a little bit. And now Rick's got his O2 sensor out, and he's just working on that back nut. And again, just a little bit tedious, a quarter turn at a time, kind of by feel. Lurch is just working his O2 sensor back in there. And we're back in the right side panel there. We're going to plug the oxygen sensors back in. And again, just make sure you match the colors up. Remember, gray is the front pipe, black, B for back. Lurch is just routing the wires right now. And then you can route them how you want, and then you can zip tie them back up. And Lurch is just zip tying those wires to keep them all secure, however you want to do that. So Lurch is taking the aftermarket clamp that comes with the pipes, and he's putting that on. Make sure the nut's to the outside there, you can see, so that you can get to it. And then we're going to go ahead and slide it on to the head pipe assembly. So I put the two stock bolts that came out of that little bracket there, and we're going to use them again to attach that bracket to the aftermarket mufflers there. And you can see Rick, as we're going along here, he has a rag in his hand and he's using some Windex. You want to make sure and use some Windex and a rag, get all the fingerprints and grease off these, because when they heat up, if any of that's left on there, it can permanently mark those pipes. So as you're going along, just clean everything up. Now Lurch is just cranking down the clamp that clamps the muffler to the header pipes. And he'll start it, and then he's actually going to put it straight up and down so that it's not showing. Like so, and then he'll finish it off. So Lurch now is just opening the clamps, and then there's little guides in each of the heat shields, and we're getting them all set before we put them in. And the nuts go a specific way, either in or out, but just look at there's a diagram on the instructions. And Lurch is just working with the collector heat shield. He's putting the hose clamps on there, getting it ready. Then Rick is just going to work it there. Again, the hose clamps are on there. And get everything secured around there. So what Rick is working on right now is the hose clamps, and they're all along all the heat shields, and of course we put them through the channels on the pipes behind there already. And now you got to get them started and get your nut driver or whatever you have in there. And the main things with the hose clamps on these heat shield guys is do not over crank them. You actually just barely get them tight and just leave it. Maybe tighten like a quarter turn, and just that's enough, because when they get hot, the metal's going to expand, and if you tighten them too much, they'll just snap. Trust me, they won't rattle as soon as those pipes heat up. So Rick's got the top clamp on that heat shield done, and he's just working on the bottom one. Kind of a tedious process. And they're just heating up the heat shield on the rear exhaust pipe there. And we're pretty much just tightening all the hose clamps at this point, just until they're just not quite snug. That way we can manipulate all the heat shields around, get everything lined up before we actually snug all the hose clamps down. And the last heat shield on the very rear here, Lurch is seating on there. And now we've got everything started, all the hose clamps, and now kind of tightening everything down. And they want a 1/16 of an inch gap between these front and rear headers here. So Rick is working on the front, and Lurch back here is working on the rear, and they've got the proper gap in there between the heat shields, the 1/16 of an inch or whatever they want. So all the heat shields are tightened down now, not over tightened, and then we're going to work on putting this front mount for the floorboard back on. That's what Rick's working on. And Rick is just cranking that bolt down. We'll get everything lined up with the floorboard before we completely crank it down. Rick is just getting things lined up with this bolt and the floorboards. Now that he's got the floorboard started, he can go back underneath and really crank that main mount down. Rick is just finishing the floorboards here. Both sides, there's those bolts we put through. We're just gonna finish off here and get that side cover on. Get the saddlebags off, we'll pretty much have it buttoned up here. Lurch just getting the saddlebags on there. And again, guys, before we finish everything, Rick is just going around with Windex It's really good at taking all the fingerprints and grease off the motorcycle or off the pipes there and the heat shields, because that will bake right onto the heat shields if you don't get it off. So this is a look inside, guys, and again we got the stock Pro baffle that comes with the Pro pipes. There is a quieter baffle that you could put in, or one up is the competition baffle. But again, you're going to hear these, and this is the standard Pro baffle with the Pro pipes. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, you're really missing out. Make sure you subscribe to Law Abiding Biker YouTube channel. We put out new videos all the time. Make sure you get on the email list, lawabidingbiker.com/email club. I also send out emails when there are new free videos available, and we are in the process of doing a ton of videos for you guys.